Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. And today I got a question that I'm going to twist for my own use. I'm actually going to modify it a little bit, but it is a good idea. Like the subject, it went a little bit off topic, but the subject was essentially, how can I get rid of stereotypes? And the asker of the question basically said that he thought that the media and environment around him totally screwed him up in terms of stereotypes. And he talks about height and stuff like that, which I think some people have stereotypes about height, and certainly we do, but I think there's a bigger question here of stereotypes and how to get rid of them. And so my answer to this question is don't get rid of stereotypes. It's kind of interesting that so many people today want to make a big deal out of stereotyping, and they kind of group racial profiling into that and stuff like that. And I understand, again, I'm a realist. I understand discrimination and whatnot happens in the world, and there are racist people and whatnot. But stereotyping is not in itself bad. And we don't want to get rid of stereotyping, right? I know this is a delicate subject for some people, but here's kind of the rationale. This is why we have stereotyping, is because our brains can only work so fast. There's actually a good book on this, the kind of ways that our brains work, called Thinking Fast and Slow. I think it's by, is it Kaufman? I can't remember the author's name, but it's a pretty good book, kind of a highly technical book. But essentially our brains have two systems, like a fast system and a slow processing system. The slow one doesn't go like that. But anyway, the point is this, that we have a lot of information around us, right? Our environment, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, if you think about how much input are you taking into your brain at any given time, it's a whole ton. You can't logically process all of that information, everything that's coming in from your eyes, from your ears, from every single nerve cell on your body, your skin, temperature, all of this stuff that's happening, plus the thoughts that are going on in your brain already. There's a lot of stimulus, a lot of input that's coming in. And so our brains have to be able to short circuit that by making assumptions. That's why we have cognitive biases. And that's why stereotypes are not, quote, true, but they generally hold. That's why we have these stereotypes. And some of them, sometimes we have stereotypes that don't generally hold. Sometimes we have biases, cognitive biases, that don't generally hold. But for the most part, our stereotypes are sort of a healthy part of our processing as human beings, and they're necessary. And they can help us. So I would say that you don't want to necessarily get rid of stereotypes. What you want to do is you want to be able to realize that a particular grouping, a stereotype, does not, it helps you to identify situations and groups, but it does not help you to identify specific cases in individual. There's always exceptions, and stereotyping is a very general rule of thumb that we use to block things in it. And I'm not just talking about people, I'm talking about situations, places, and stuff. But I will tell you this, from a people perspective, if you see someone walking down the street and they look like a thug, and your brain goes off and says, I better check my white male privilege because I'm stereotyping that person. I should go up to that gentleman and introduce myself and say hi and not walk on the other side of the street and not avoid eye contact with him, because that would be a very racist type of thing to do, and I should check my white male privilege. Good luck. Go ahead. Go do that. See how that works out for you. Now it may work out for you. The gentleman may be not a thug. He may be just dressed like a thug, and from your stereotype, and you may be wrong. But a good percentage of the time, you're going to be right in that case, and that stereotype is probably going to save you from a dangerous situation. Again, I'm not suggesting that you discriminate against people based on race or religion or any of these things, but in general, you kind of got to use it. And I could use this the same way. I could say, if you walk into a southern bar, okay, and you see a bunch of motorcycles parked outside, okay, and you see a big fat white dude, right, with a shaved head and a Nazi, a swastika tattoo on his arm, okay, and he's all tatted up, okay, and he's got a big ass goatee, and he's got some earrings, and he's wearing a leather jacket. You should probably have a stereotype for this kind of guy, and you should probably avoid that situation, right? Okay, so that's all I'm saying here is that you have to understand that stereotypes are useful and they're beneficial, but it doesn't mean that you get to group everyone who belongs to that stereotype in together, right? When you see me on video, you probably had some kind of stereotype of me, and maybe I've broken that stereotype in some regards. In some ways, maybe I haven't, and maybe it's been useful to you. But I think that the people that are foolishly trying to get rid of all their stereotypes, because they can't fathom the fact that they may be somewhat racially biased, religiously biased, that they may have these stereotypes, that they can't fathom that, and they like to condemn everyone else for what is a natural part of the processing of our brain to deal with the environment and to short circuit us having to evaluate every situation specifically. They're actually harming themselves, and they're incorrectly judging people for this, and they're causing a lot of harm and bad things in the world. We just need to accept things as how they are, at least in that regard. So my answer is simple: don't try and get rid of stereotypes. Instead, try to rise above them. That's the better thing, is to say, okay, to be cognitive, right? I always talk about like stepping outside yourself. And I do this myself. I evaluate what I'm doing and what my behavior is. And so suppose that I see someone and they fit a stereotype that I think. So the way my thought process works is it doesn't say, "Oh, John, no, are you a racist? Are you going to stereotype someone?" It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. Instead, it goes like this. It says, "Okay, you're applying a stereotype, which may be correct. Right now, what you need to assume is that the stereotype that you're thinking of is correct. Make that assumption, right? Because that's, without any other information, that's probably going to be your best assumption. So act in that manner. But be willing and open to the fact that you're using a short circuit here, that this is not based on any kind of knowledge that you have. This is just your feel and your instant reaction, and it could be wrong if you gain more information that tells you otherwise. And so I'm going to tell myself that. I'm going to act in that way. If I feel like that it's a dangerous situation, I'm not just going to hope for the best and say that I'm profiling someone or discriminating against them. I'm going to act in that manner and approach the situation cautiously. And as soon as they give me evidence to doubt that stereotype, I'm going to accept that evidence. I'm not going to hold steadfast onto that. I'm going to say, okay, here we go. We've got some new evidence. Now we can actually evaluate the situation on an individual or contextual level as what's happening, as opposed to grouping things together. But we don't want to lose that ability to do that, because it's important. We have to have that. I definitely think there's people that are walking without their brains turned on, because they're trying to limit this portion of human adaptation that is so critical, and they're judging it as if it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you take a stereotype and you act on it in a harmful way towards a group of people or towards an individual. That is a bad thing. But if you have the stereotype and you use it to make important or smart decisions and to help evaluate how you should deal in a situation and to make the snap judgments where you need to make the snap judgments and are willing to revise that information as you gain more knowledge, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing to be ashamed of that. And you shouldn't try and override that circuitry that has kept our ancestors alive for 50,000 years and allowed us to build computers and become software developers. Because I guarantee you, if your ancestor didn't have a stereotype of a saber-toothed tiger, you wouldn't be around right now. So that's what I got to say about that. If you don't like it, go ahead, leave a comment below. I don't care. whatever. But I would advise you to at least consider that stereotypes might be useful in some situations in your life. If you like this video, if you didn't like this video, if you don't want to stereotype me, I don't know what that has to do with anything, click the subscribe button below. I'm not your stereotypical programmer, so click the subscribe button. How's that? All right, I'll talk to you next time. Take care.